Ethan Matthews wasn't the type of man who frequented weddings. At 35, a single dad raising his 6-year-old daughter Lily, his weekends were usually filled with ballet recitals, pancake breakfasts, and bedtime stories, not tuxedos and champagne toasts. But when his neighbor and friend, Claire Summers, appeared on his doorstep one Friday evening, he knew something was wrong. Claire's eyes were rimmed with worry, her hands twisting nervously. "Ethan," she began, "I know this is asking a lot, but, would you be my date to my ex's wedding?" He blinked, unsure he heard her right. Claire, the woman who had always been poised, independent, and stubborn, wanted him to pose as her date. "Your ex is getting married?" he asked slowly. She nodded. "Yes, and everyone's expecting me to show up alone. I can't stand the thought of sitting there while he parades around with his perfect new bride. I need someone by my side. Someone who won't make me feel small." Ethan studied her. They had been neighbors for 3 years, bonded by shared morning coffees and parenting woes. She'd helped Lily with homework, and he'd fixed her leaky sink. But this was different. "I don't know, Claire. Weddings aren't really my thing." Claire's lip trembled before she quickly masked it with a forced smile. "Forget I asked. It was stupid." She turned to leave, but Ethan stopped her. "Wait, if it means that much to you, I'll go. But I'll need to rent a decent suit. I can't exactly show up in jeans and a dad hoodie." For the first time that night, Claire laughed. It was small, but real. "Thank you, Ethan. You have no idea how much this means to me." What Ethan didn't realize then was that this simple yes would change not just her night, but both of their lives forever. The morning of the wedding arrived with a weight Claire couldn't shake. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the navy blue dress draped carefully across her closet door. It was elegant, with a sweetheart neckline and a flowing skirt that brushed the floor. She had bought it weeks ago, convincing herself she needed to look untouchable, sophisticated, radiant, unbothered. But now, as sunlight streamed through the curtains, it felt less like armor and more like a costume. Her hands trembled as she picked up her phone. The wedding invitation still sat in her inbox, bold letters announcing the union of Ryan Miller and Emily Carter. Seeing the names together twisted her stomach. Ryan, the man she had once pictured growing old with. The man who had left her because she was too ambitious, too independent, not enough for him. And now, he was marrying someone he had known for less than a year. A knock startled her from her thoughts. She opened the door to find Ethan standing there, his daughter Lily peeking from behind his leg. For a moment, Claire forgot how to breathe. Ethan had traded his usual jeans and t-shirts for a charcoal gray suit that fit him like it was made for him. His tie, navy, to match her dress, was knotted perfectly. His hair, often a little tousled, was neatly styled, though a few strands rebelliously curled at his temple. He looked devastatingly handsome. And not just handsome, but solid, dependable. The kind of man who could anchor you when the world threatened to pull you under. Claire's lips parted, but no words came. It was Lily who broke the silence, bouncing on her toes with excitement. "Miss Claire, you look like a princess," she declared, eyes wide as she admired Claire's dress and the soft curls that framed her face. Claire laughed, some of the tension easing from her shoulders. She crouched to Lily's level. "Thank you, sweetheart. Your dad looks pretty dashing too, don't you think?" Lily giggled. "I told him he had to look nice, so everyone knows he's special." She whispered the last word like it was a secret, and Ethan cleared his throat, a faint blush rising on his cheeks. The car ride to the venue was quiet at first, filled with the hum of the engine and the occasional turn signal click. Claire's hands fidgeted in her lap, and Ethan noticed. Without a word, he placed his hand on the center console, close enough for her to feel the warmth radiating from his skin. He didn't touch her, but the silent offer was enough. She relaxed, her fingers brushing against his briefly before retreating. "You don't have to be nervous," Ethan said softly, keeping his eyes on the road. She gave a humorless laugh. "Easy for you to say. You're not about to face an entire ballroom full of people who once rooted for you and your ex to end up together." "I may not be," he admitted, "but I do know what it's like to walk into a room where everyone's waiting to see if you'll fall apart. You're stronger than you think, Claire. You'll get through this." His words sank deeper than she expected. Stronger than she thought. Maybe. The venue loomed ahead, an elegant hall strung with white lights and fresh blooms at the entrance. Guests in formal wear mingled on the steps, laughter and clinking glasses drifting in the air. Claire's heart hammered as they pulled up. She could feel eyes turning already, curious, assessing. Ethan stepped out first, moving around to open her door. He extended his hand, palm steady, and for a moment, she just stared at it. Then she placed her hand in his, letting him help her out of the car. Together, they walked up the steps. Inside, the murmur of conversations lowered as people noticed them. Claire felt her spine straighten, her chin lift. For the first time in years, she wasn't shrinking under the weight of their stares. With Ethan by her side, she wasn't the broken ex-girlfriend. She was someone who had moved forward, someone worth looking at. It didn't take long before Ryan appeared, gliding toward them with his bride on his arm. His smile was polished, his suit sharp, but Claire noticed the flicker of surprise in his eyes as they landed on Ethan. "Claire," Ryan said smoothly. "So glad you came. And, who's this?" Before she could stumble over an explanation, Ethan extended his hand firmly. "Ethan Matthews. Her date." Ryan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly before he plastered the smile back on. Claire caught the shift, the subtle crack in his confidence. A thrill shot through her veins. For the first time since the breakup, she wasn't the one at a disadvantage. And she knew, deep down, that this night was about to change everything. The reception hall glowed under a canopy of chandeliers, the golden light bouncing off crystal glasses and polished cutlery. Claire followed Ethan to their table, her stomach in knots. She hadn't been back in a room like this since the breakup, and the last thing she wanted was to sit near Ryan's circle of friends, friends who had once been hers too. Her fears were confirmed when she saw the seating chart. Their names sat directly across from Ryan's old college buddies. She swallowed hard as she slid into her chair. The smiles that greeted her were polite but tight, their eyes flicking from her to Ethan with thinly veiled curiosity. One woman leaned forward, her voice syrupy sweet. "Claire, you look lovely. We didn't realize you'd be bringing someone." Claire opened her mouth, but Ethan spoke first, his tone warm and confident. "It was a last-minute decision. I couldn't let her come alone, could I?" He slipped his hand casually over hers on the table. The gesture was simple, but it sent a rush of heat up her arm. The woman's eyes widened slightly before she leaned back. Conversation resumed, though Claire could feel the undercurrent of whispers. She squeezed Ethan's hand under the table, whispering, "You didn't have to do that." He smiled faintly. "Sure I did. You're not alone tonight." Dinner passed in a blur of courses Claire barely touched. Between the laughter at the other tables and the constant, almost pitying glances, her appetite had vanished. Still, Ethan carried the conversation with ease, asking about her work, teasing her gently when she tried to downplay her latest promotion, and leaning in when she spoke as though she was the only person worth listening to. Slowly, the walls she'd built around herself began to crack. When the band struck up the first dance, Claire felt her chest tighten. Ryan and his new bride glided across the floor, all perfect smiles and synchronized steps. Applause rippled around them. Claire stared, her nails digging into her palm beneath the tablecloth. That used to be her dream. That used to be her. Then Ethan stood, extending a hand. "Dance with me." Claire blinked. "What? No. Come on," he urged gently. "You don't have to be perfect. Just let me distract you." Her first instinct was to refuse. The idea of drawing attention to herself on that dance floor terrified her. But then she looked at him, steady, patient, offering her an escape. Slowly, she slipped her hand into his. The band shifted into a softer tune as Ethan led her to the floor. He wasn't a polished dancer, but he didn't pretend to be. His hand rested warm and reassuring on her waist, his other clasping hers firmly. They swayed more than danced, but it was enough. "You're doing great," he murmured near her ear. Claire let out a shaky laugh. "You're just saying that because I haven't tripped yet. Maybe. But I'd catch you if you did." Her chest tightened at the sincerity in his voice. For a moment, the noise of the room faded, the eyes of others blurred away. It was just the two of them, moving together in their own quiet rhythm. Then a sharp voice cut through the music. "Claire, darling." Ryan's mother stood a few feet away, her smile thin, her eyes sharp. She stepped closer, her tone dripping with false sweetness. I always thought you'd be the one up there, at the altar. Funny how life turns out, isn't it? Claire froze, the words slicing through her like glass. Heat rushed to her cheeks, shame and pain tangled in her chest. But before she could crumble, Ethan's arm tightened around her. He turned to Ryan's mother, his voice firm, almost protective. With all due respect, ma'am, Claire deserves far better than this circus. Don't you think? Gasps rippled through nearby guests. Ryan's mother blinked, stunned into silence, before retreating with a huff. Claire's breath hitched. She stared up at Ethan, her heart pounding. She had never seen him like this, so fierce, so unwilling to let anyone belittle her. Tears pricked her eyes, not from humiliation this time, but from something far deeper. Gratitude, relief, the realization that, maybe, this wasn't just an act anymore. She tightened her grip on his hand. For the first time all night, she didn't feel like she was faking strength. With Ethan, she didn't have to. The reception finally began to wind down. Laughter and chatter spilled out of the ballroom as guests gathered on the patio with sparklers, raising champagne flutes in honor of the bride and groom. Claire, however, slipped away. Her heels clicked softly across the stone path as she made her way into the garden, her navy dress brushing against her legs. Fairy lights twinkled above her, strung through the branches like stars. The night air was cool, crisp, a welcome contrast to the stifling emotions that had followed her all evening. She wrapped her arms around herself, drawing in a shaky breath. She had made it through the wedding. She had smiled, laughed even, and sat through toasts that mentioned her ex's perfect love story. But the ache was still there, deep and gnawing, reminding her of all the years she had given to a man who hadn't wanted her enough. She hated that it still hurt. Claire. The sound of his voice made her turn. Ethan stood at the edge of the garden path, his jacket unbuttoned, his tie loosened just slightly. His expression was soft, concerned. He walked toward her, the gravel crunching under his polished shoes, until he stood close enough for her to see the sincerity in his eyes. You disappeared, he said gently. I got worried. I just needed a minute, she admitted, her voice tight. She tried to smile, but it faltered. I thought I was over him. I really did. But tonight, it hurt more than I expected. Ethan's brow furrowed. Of course it hurt. You gave him years of your life. That doesn't just vanish because he's standing next to someone else now. But Claire, he took a step closer, his voice steady. You don't owe him another tear. Her chest rose and fell as she tried to absorb his words. Then why do I feel so broken? She whispered. He lifted his hand, hesitated for a moment, then gently tilted her chin up so she had no choice but to meet his gaze. Because you forgot something. You forgot how incredible you are. Strong, brilliant, kind. Any man would be lucky to stand beside you. The world seemed to still. Her throat tightened, tears slipping free before she could stop them. But they weren't the tears of humiliation she had fought back all night. These were different, lighter, almost freeing. Her voice cracked. Why are you doing this for me? Ethan's eyes softened. Because somewhere along the way, I stopped being just your neighbor. I started caring about you. Really caring. The confession landed between them like a spark, igniting something Claire hadn't dared to acknowledge until now. She thought back to the little moments. Coffee shared on rushed mornings, his easy laugh when she teased him, the way Lily's face lit up whenever she saw her. Somewhere, quietly, her heart had begun to knit itself back together, thread by thread, with Ethan in the center of it all. She let out a shaky laugh through her tears. You have the worst timing, you know that. He smiled faintly, brushing his thumb across her cheek to catch a tear. Maybe, but I figured tonight was as good a time as any to be honest. A silence lingered between them, thick with unspoken feelings. Then, almost without thinking, Claire leaned in. Their lips met softly, tentatively, as if both were testing whether this fragile shift between them was real. It was. When they finally pulled back, Claire pressed her forehead against his chest, her body trembling not with sorrow, but with relief. For the first time in years, she felt safe. Wanted. Whole. They walked back to the car hand in hand, their fingers intertwined not for appearances this time, but because neither wanted to let go. As Ethan drove her home, Claire glanced at him, her lips curving into a smile. She realized she hadn't just survived her ex's wedding, She had stumbled into something new, something real. And for the first time in a very long time, her tears weren't for what she had lost. They were for what she had finally found.